Commander Hyun-woo looked out the big window of his spaceship at the new human soldiers arriving at the training station. His blue alien hands gripped the metal rail as he watched their ships dock with the space station the Galactic Navy had not wanted humans in their ranks at first, but the war against the Void Swarm monsters had been going on for so long that they needed help from anyone who could fight. The aliens in charge had heard strange stories about human stories about how they did impossible things and won battles they should have lost, stories about how they turned training exercises into wild experiments and somehow made everything work better than before. But Commander Hyun-woo had thought those were just stories. Until the humans actually arrived, Lieutenant Nari walked up to him. Her blue skin was showing the worried patterns that her people displayed when they were scared. She held a data pad in her hands, and her face looked confused. "Sir, the human group is asking if they can change their fighter ships," she said. Her voice sounded tired, like she had been dealing with human requests all day. Hyun-woo felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. In just 3 days, the humans had already asked to modify 47 different things on their ships. They had invented a new type of emergency food that somehow tasted better than real meals. They had accidentally discovered a new way to navigate through space while trying to make their ships go faster. The problem was not that humans were bad at their jobs. The problem was that they were too good at their jobs in ways that made no sense to anyone else. Captain Min-ho walked onto the bridge with that smile that humans always wore, the smile that made other alien species nervous because it usually meant the humans were about to do something impossible. Min-ho was the human officer who was supposed to help the aliens understand how humans thought, but most of the time he just made things more confusing. "Commander, I wanted to talk to you about our training exercise with the asteroid field," Min-ho said. His smile got bigger as he talked. "Please tell me you are not planning anything that starts with maybe dawn." Hyun-woo said he remembered reading the intelligence reports about how humans like to suggest ideas that sounded crazy but somehow worked. Min-ho laughed. "Actually, that's funny you should say that. My pilot Jae-sung had this idea about using the asteroids as weapons, and I was going to say maybe don't try to surf one into enemy lines, but then I thought about the math involved." Hyun-woo felt all 3 of his hearts stop beating for a moment. This was exactly what Galactic Command had warned him about. Humans had a scary habit of turning training exercises into laboratories for new ideas, and their new ideas usually involved turning normal things into weapons. The communications officer Sung-min turned around from his station. He was a crystalline alien who liked everything to be organized and predictable. "Sir, we are getting reports from training sectors 7 through 12. The human pilots have somehow made their fighters fly in patterns that our computers cannot track. They are supposed to be learning basic formation flying." Hyun-woo said quietly. "They said basic formations were boring," Min-ho explained cheerfully. "So they decided to make them more interesting." Lieutenant Yoonji figured out that if you arrange 12 fighters in a special geometric shape and spin them at certain speeds, it creates a blind spot that can hide an entire squadron. Hyun-woo stared at the screen showing the impossible formation. According to every military book in the galaxy, what the humans were doing should cause massive crashes and explosions. Instead, it was working perfectly, and their teachers could not figure out how to stop it. "Sir," Lieutenant Nari interrupted nervously, "the human engineer So Young is asking if she can optimize our shield generators. She says she has some ideas about making them work better. The last time a human engineer had optimized something, they had accidentally created a new type of faster-than-light communication that worked by making space hiccup. It was amazing, groundbreaking, and completely impossible according to the laws of physics. It also worked perfectly, which made scientists across the galaxy question their life choice." Min-ho's communicator made a beeping sound, and his expression changed to what humans called tactical excitement. "Commander, I just got word from my team. They have been studying the Void Swarm's attack patterns, and they think they found a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" Hyun-woo asked, though he suspected the answer would be something that made his head hurt. "Well, Pilot Yujin noticed that the swarm always attacks using prime number sequences, but they cannot adapt when you respond using Fibonacci patterns." And then So Young realized that if you tune your weapon frequencies to match musical harmonies, it messes up their hive coordination. Hyun-woo closed his eyes and tried to remember why he had volunteered for this assignment. The Galactic Navy had spent hundreds of years developing smart battle plans based on careful study and proven strategies. Humans had been part of the Navy for exactly 1 week, and they were already rewriting the manual using music theory and math sequences that most species did not even have names for. Commander, the tactical officer Jinwoo, called out urgently, "We at detecting a void swarm patrol approaching our sector. 3 destroyers and a hive shipment." Hosea eyes lit up with that special human look that meant they were about to do something brilliant and terrifying at the same time. Perfect timing, maybe. "Don't worry about following standard battle rules. We have some new ideas we would like to test, Commander." Henwu looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy ships. A hive ship was one of the most dangerous things in the galaxy. It was huge, heavily armed, and controlled by a collective alien mind that never made mistakes. Standard procedure was to run away and call for help when you saw one of these ships, but the humans did not seem interested in standard procedure. All human fighters, this is Captain Minho. His voice came over the communication system. "Remember, the enemy expects us to behave logically. Let's make sure they are disappointed." Yunwoo watched in horror as the human pilots broke formation and began flying in ways that violated the basic rules of space combat. Fighter pilot Jae-sung was somehow flying in a spiral pattern that made his ship appear to be in 6 places at once according to their sensors. Pilot Yoonji had discovered that spinning rapidly while shooting created a cone of destruction that confused the swarm's targeting computers. The humans were not just fighting the enemy ships. They were treating the battle like an art project where the goal was to be as unpredictable as possible. Every move they made looked random but somehow worked perfectly. Their fighters danced through space like they were performing a ballet designed by someone who had never heard of physics. The human engineer So Young has bypassed our weapon safety systems. Lieutenant Nari reported her skin had turned deep purple with stress. She is feeding power from the life support systems directly into the main guns that should kill everyone on board, Hinwoo said weakly. She says she compensated by redirecting the waste heat through the air processors to create better air circulation. Apparently, we are going to have the most comfortable ship-to-ship combat in naval history. On the tactical display, something impossible was happening. The human fighters were not just holding their own against the Void Swarm destroyers. They were winning. Pilot Yujin had somehow convinced 2 enemy ships to crash into each other by flying in a pattern that looked like a math proof. Another pilot named Tae-hyun was using his fighter's communication array to broadcast what he claimed was the universe's most annoying song directly into the swarm's neural network. Commander, Communications Officer Sung-min announced with the calm of someone who had given up trying to understand reality. "The enemy hive ship is retreating." Hyun-woo stared at the display. A hive ship had never retreated from a single cruiser before. They were massive, heavily armed, and operated on hive mind principles that did not include concepts like fear or self-preservation. Captain Minho appeared on the bridge, still wearing his combat suit and grinning like he had just solved the universe's greatest puzzle. "The swarm operates on pattern recognition, but they cannot process truly random behavior, so we stopped being predictable." You turned military doctrine into jazz music, Han-woo said, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. Exactly. Engineer So Young figured out that their hive mind communication has a frequency similar to classical music, so we introduced enough chaos to give their entire fleet a headache. Meanwhile, pilot Jae-sung discovered that if you fly like you are solving a math problem while drunk, their targeting computers assume you are broken and ignore you. This was only the beginning, Hyun-woo realized. The humans had been in the Galactic Navy for 1 week, and they had already changed everything, and somehow he knew that things were about to get much more interesting. The Void Swarm ships came out of hyperspace like metal nightmares. Their biomechanical hulls twisted and moved like living things that wanted to eat everything in sight. When the Galactic Navy saw a hive ship, the normal thing to do was run away as fast as possible and call for backup, but the humans seemed to have different ideas about what normal mental human fighters this is. Captain Minho, his voice crackled over the radio. "Remember, the enemy expects us to act smart. Let's make sure we disappoint them." Commander Hyun-woo watched in shock as the human pilots broke apart from their group and started flying in ways that broke every rule of space fighting. Fighter pilot Jae-sung was somehow flying in a corkscrew pattern that made his ship show up in 6 different places on the sensors at the same time. Pilot Yunji had found out that spinning really fast while shooting made a cone of destruction that confused the swarms targeting computers. The humans were not just fighting. They were treating the battle like a dance performance where the goal was to be as weird as possible. Every move they made looked crazy, but somehow worked perfectly, sir. The human engineer So Young has gone around our weapon. Safety rules, Lieutenant. Neri reported her alien skin had turned deep purple, which meant she was very stressed. She's taking power from the life support systems and putting it directly into the big guns that should kill everyone on the ship, Heian-Wu said in a weak voice. She says she fixed that by sending the extra heat through the air systems to make better airflow. Apparently we are going to have the most comfortable space battle in Navy history. On the screen showing the battle, something impossible was happening. The human fighters were not just surviving against the void swarm destroyers, they were actually winning. Pilot Yujin had somehow made 2 enemy ships crash into each other by flying in a pattern that looked like a math equation. Another pilot, named Taehyun, was using his fighter's radio to play what he said was the most annoying song in the universe directly into the swarms. Brain Network, the Void Swarm, had been conquering galaxies for thousands of years. They were smart, organized, and had never lost a major battle. Their ships were bigger, their weapons were stronger, and their hive mind could coordinate millions of fighters at once. But they had never fought humans before. Commander Communications Officer Seung-min announced with the calm voice of someone who had stopped trying to understand what was happening. The enemy hive ship is running away. Running away. Heian-Wu stared at the screen. A hive ship had never run from a single cruiser before. They were huge, heavily armed, and their hive mind did not understand concepts like fear or giving up. Captain Minho walked onto the bridge, still wearing his fighting suit and smiling, like he had just figured out the answer to the biggest puzzle in the universe. The swarm works on pattern recognition, but they cannot handle truly random behavior, so we stopped being predictable. You turned fighting into jazz music, Heian-Wu said, trying to understand what he had just seen. Exactly. Engineer So Young figured out that their hive mind communication sounds like classical music, so we added enough chaos to give their whole fleet a headache. Meanwhile, pilot Jae-sung discovered that if you fly like you are trying to solve math while drunk, their computers think you are broken and ignore. Youth Tactical Officer Jin-woo was staring at his readings like they had personally insulted him. Sir, according to our sensors, the human changes to our ship have made efficiency go up by 30%, reduced power use by 20%, and somehow made our coffee taste better. How does engineering work affect coffee? Heian-Wu asked weakly. So Young says it's all about harmonic resonance, Minho explained. The same rules that messed up the swarm's communication also made our food makers work better. She calls it complete ship design. Lieutenant Nari walked up with a data pad. Her skin color had changed to pale green, which meant she was feeling amazed but also scared. Sir Galactic, Command wants a full report on the fight. They want to know how one training ship beat a void swarm battle. Grufin-Wu looked at the humans on his bridge. All of them were excitedly talking about their next set of improvements to normal Navy operations. Engineer So Young was drawing changes to the shield generators that would apparently let them work as both defensive barriers and musical instruments. Pilot Yujin was explaining to anyone who would listen how asteroid surfing could become a real military trick. The problem was not that the humans were bad at following orders. The problem was that they were too good at making new orders that worked better than the old ones. They did not think like other species. They did not follow normal logic. They seemed to operate on some kind of creative chaos that turned impossible situations into easy victories. Tell Command that we discovered humans do not just think outside the box. Heian-Wu said slowly. They have forgotten the box exists completely, and somehow that makes them impossible to beat. Minhozia Communicator made a beeping sound and his face changed to that dangerous look of human inspiration. Commander, we just got new orders. There is a swarm stronghold in the Kepler system that has been unbeatable for 15 years. Command wants to know if we think we can take it. What do you think? Captain Heian-Wu asked, though he was starting to suspect that asking humans for military opinions was like asking chaos itself for strategic advice. Minhosea's smile got bigger. Well, maybe don't Try a direct attack on a fortress designed to stop normal assaults, but I have some ideas about unconventional approaches that might work in Wu. Felt his 3 hearts beat together in a pattern of fear and excitement. He was starting to understand why the Galactic Navy both feared and desperately needed human thinking. The humans did not just win battles. They changed the fundamental rules of how battles worked. Engineer So Young looked up from her drawings. Commander, I've been studying the fortress design, and I think I found something interesting. The whole structure uses harmonic resonance to make its shield stronger, but that means it's basically a giant musical instrument. You want to turn a military fortress into a musical instrument. Han Wu asked. Not just any music, pilot Jae-sung added excitedly. We are going to make it play death metal, specifically a song that So Young wrote using math frequencies designed to create destructive interference in biomechanical structures. The crew was quiet for a moment as they tried to process what they had just heard. The humans wanted to defeat an unbeatable fortress by making it sing itself to death using mathematically designed heavy metal music. How exactly do you plan to make a fortress play music? Lieutenant Nari asked. Pilot Yujin smiled and turned on a holographic display showing the fortress sensor array. Every sensor dish is basically a satellite receiver. If we approach from different angles and broadcast specific frequencies in order, we can turn their entire detection system into the biggest speaker system in the galaxy. That assumes they do not destroy us before we get close enough, pointed out Tactical Officer Jin Woo, who had developed a nervous habit of checking his instruments whenever humans explained their plans. Which brings us to the really fun part, Minho said, his expression changing to what the crew had learned to recognize as maximum human chaos mode. We are not approaching from space at all. The tactical display changed to show the asteroid belt around the fortress system. Engineer So Young had somehow calculated paths that would let their fighters hide inside hollowed-out asteroids and approach the fortress from below using the asteroid's natural spinning to hide their engine signatures. You want to hide inside rocks and surf them toward the enemy fortress. Han Wu said slowly, trying to figure out if this was the smartest or craziest plan he had ever heard. Asteroids are basically free stealth technology, Pilot Yunji explained. Plus, if we hollow them out and fill them with our music equipment, each asteroid becomes a mobile speaker system. We will literally surround the fortress with a concert that tears it apart. At the tiny level, Communications Officer Sung-min looked up from his calculations with the expression of someone who had given up trying to apply logic to human behavior. Sir, the math actually works if they can coordinate the frequencies precisely enough. The harmonic interference will make the fortress biomechanical parts vibrate themselves into structural failure. Hyun Woo realized that somewhere along the way he had stopped trying to apply normal military thinking to human operations and started trusting in humanity's weird but effective approach to solving problems. The humans did not just think differently, they thought in ways that made the impossible become routine. All right, he said finally. Prepare for Operation Asteroid Concert. The Kepler stronghold hung in space like a metal cancer. Its biomechanical surfaces were covered with weapon systems and sensor arrays that had detected and destroyed every attack fleet sent against it for 15 years. The Galactic Navy called it unbeatable, requiring at least 3 battle fleets and millions of dead soldiers to take the humans had different ideas about how many people needed to do so. The fortress expects attacks from space. Captain Minho explained to his crew. His tactical briefing looked more like an art class than a military presentation, but engineer So Young discovered something interesting about its design. Engineer So Young stepped forward. Her presentation was filled with diagrams that looked like they belonged in a music theory book rather than a military analysis. The fortress uses harmonic resonance to make its shield stronger, but that means it's basically a giant musical instrument. If we can make it play the right tune, we can make it sing itself. Apart, Commander Hyun Woo stared at the technical papers, trying to process what he was seeing. You want to defeat a military fortress by turning it into a musical instrument, not just any music, Pilot Jae-sung said excitedly. We are going to make it play death metal, specifically a song that engineer So Young wrote using math frequencies designed to create destructive interference in biomechanical structures. Lieutenant Nari, who had begun showing the emotional coloring patterns of someone Having a mental breakdown raised a careful hand. How exactly do you plan to make a fortress play music? Pilot Eugene smiled and turned on a holographic display showing the fortress sensor array. Every sensor dish is basically a satellite receiver. If we approach from different angles and broadcast specific frequencies in order, we can turn their entire detection grid into the largest speaker system in the galaxy that assumes they do not destroy us before we get close enough, pointed out Tactical Officer Jinhua, who had developed a nervous habit of checking and rechecking his instruments whenever humans explain their plans, which brings us to the really fun part. Minho said, his expression changing to what the crew had learned to recognize as maximum human chaos mode. We are not approaching from space at all. The tactical display changed to show the asteroid belt surrounding the fortress system. Engineer So Young had somehow calculated paths that would allow their fighters to hide inside hollowed-out asteroids and approach the fortress from below using the asteroid's natural rotation to hide their engine signatures. You want to hide inside rocks and surf them toward the enemy fortress, Hyunwoo said, slowly trying to determine if this was the most brilliant or most insane plan he had ever heard. Asteroids are basically free stealth technology, Pilot Yunji explained. Plus, if we hollow them out and fill them with our resonance equipment, each asteroid becomes a mobile speaker system. We will literally surround the fortress with a concert that tears it apart at the molecular level. Communications Officer Sung-min looked up from his calculations with the expression of someone who had given up trying to apply logic to human behavior. Sir, the mathematics actually work. If they can coordinate the frequencies precisely enough, the harmonic interference will cause the fortress biomechanical components to vibrate themselves into structural failure. But what about the garrison? Nari asked. There are thousands of Void Swarm warriors inside that fortress. Minhozia's smile took on a slightly evil quality. That is where Pilot Taehyun's specialty comes in. Remember how he disrupted the hive ship's communication with annoying music? Well, he has composed something special for this mission. Pilot Taehyun stepped forward with the enthusiasm of someone about to share their greatest artistic achievement. I have created a 17-minute composition that combines the most irritating sounds from 12 different species, musical traditions played at frequencies that specifically disrupt Void Swarm neural pathways. It is designed to cause sensory overload and temporary paralysis in hive mind organisms. You have weaponized bad music, Hyunwoo stated, wondering if this was what insanity felt like. Not bad music, Taehyun corrected with artistic pride. Strategically unpleasant music. There is a difference. Bad music is accidental. This is precision-engineered auditory warfare. Engineer So Young activated another display showing power distribution calculations while the fortress is distracted by trying to process Taehyun's assault on good taste. I will be using our modified shield generators to create resonance amplifiers. Instead of blocking energy, we will be focusing it into specific frequency patterns that turn the fortress' own power grid into a self-destruct sequence. Let me understand this correctly, Hyunwoo said, feeling like he was trying to navigate a conversation with chaos itself. You plan to hollow out asteroids, hide inside them, surf toward an unbeatable fortress, surround it with mobile speakers, play music so terrible it paralyzes the enemy, then use their own power systems to make the fortress vibrate itself to death. When you put it like that, it sounds almost reasonable, Minho said cheerfully. Tactical Officer Jinwoo was running probability calculations on his console, his expression growing more bewildered with each result. Sir, the computer estimates a 73% chance of mission success, but it also indicates a 97% chance that this plan violates the laws of physics as we understand them. Physics is more like guidelines anyway, Engineer So Young said dismissively. The universe is much more flexible than most people think. You just have to know how to ask. Nusley, the asteroid belt around Kepler station looked peaceful from a distance, just another collection of space rocks drifting in their ancient orbits. What the Void Swarm sensors could not detect was that 12 of those asteroids now contained hollowed-out chambers filled with humans' modified equipment and what Engineer So Young had cheerfully dubbed the galaxy's most aggressive sound system. Inside Asteroid 7, Pilot Jason was making final adjustments to his fighter craft, which had been modified so extensively that it barely resembled its original design. So Young, Are you sure this resonance equipment will not interfere with my engines to fine? Interfere, So Young replied while calibrating what appeared to be a cross between a subspace communicator and a concert amplifier. If by interfere you mean make your ship vibrate in harmony with the universe, then yes, it will definitely interfere, Commander. Tian Wu's voice crackled through the communication system from the command asteroid. All units, we are approaching optimal position. Remember, timing is everything. The fortress needs to receive all frequency broadcasts at the same time, or we will just be playing very expensive elevator music at them. Pilot Eugene checked his calculations one final time. His asteroid was responsible for the mathematical component of their assault broadcasting, frequencies based on prime number sequences that would disrupt the fortress computational systems. Commander, I am still not entirely sure how we are going to explain this in our after-action report. Maybe don't worry about the paperwork until after we see if we survive. Minho's voice replied from his position inside the lead asteroid. Besides, I am pretty sure Galactic Command is going to need to invent new categories for what we are about to attempt. The fortress loomed ahead of them, its biomechanical surface writhing with sensory organs and weapon systems. For 15 years, it had been the Void Swarm's most secure position, a base of operations that had withstood normal assault fleets and orbital bombardments. It had never faced an attack by humans armed with weaponized music theory initiating. Phase 1 announced Pilot Yunji from her position at the formation's edge. Her asteroid contained the percussion section of their improvised orca-specialized equipment, designed to create rhythmic pulses that would interfere with the fortress. Natural Bayer-Hithmashi, first resonance wave hit the fortress like a gentle touch, barely registering on their defensive sensors. The biomechanical surface rippled slightly as if the entire structure was trying to figure out what it had just felt. Phase 2 Go Minho commanded pilot Tae-hyun, activated his audio warfare system, and the space around the fortress, filled with sounds that could charitably be described as music if music could be weaponized and aimed at specific neural pathways. The combination of alien whale songs, crystal harp melodies, and what sounded like someone torturing a quantum harmonica created an auditory experience that made reality itself uncomfortable. Inside the fortress, the Void Swarm warriors began experiencing something they had never encountered before: a collective headache. Their hive mind communication network, which operated on perfectly coordinated frequencies, suddenly found itself trying to process input that made no logical sense and hurt to think about. The fortress began to sing. Fortress shields are fluctuating, reported Tactical Officer Jin Woo from the command asteroid, his voice filled with the wonder of someone watching the impossible happen in real time. Their defensive systems are trying to adapt to the frequency assault, but they cannot find a pattern to counter that. Is because there is not a pattern, Engineer So Young explained cheerfully as she started. Phase 3 I designed the resonance sequence using random number generators, quantum fluctuation data, and what humans call artistic inspiration. It is mathematically unpredictable because it is not actually mathematics. The fortress mechanical hull began to vibrate in ways that its designers had never anticipated. Weapon systems started firing at random targets. Sensor arrays began rotating in confused circles, and what appeared to be the fortress equivalent of windows began flashing in colors that did not exist in most species. Visual spectrums. Phase 4 Minho announced, and Pilot Eugene activated the mathematical component of their assault Fibonacci sequences, prime number patterns, and what So Young had mysteriously labeled the music of the spheres joined the noise surrounding the fortress. The structure's computational systems, already struggling with Tae-hyun's auditory assault, suddenly found themselves trying to process mathematical relationships that were simultaneously beautiful and completely destructive to artificial intelligence systems. The fortress is trying to communicate. Communications Officer Sung Min reported, his voice filled with professional bewilderment. I am receiving what appears to be a surrender signal, but it is being transmitted in 17 different languages at the same time, including 3 that do not exist. 5 Minho called out, and the final component of their plan activated. Engineer So Young's changes to their shield generators created resonance amplifiers that focused all the chaotic frequencies into precise harmonic patterns instead of random noise, the fortress suddenly found itself at the center of a perfectly coordinated symphony of destruction, every note calculated to create maximum structural interference. The biomechanical hull began to sing. It started as a low harmonic vibration, almost beautiful in its complex patterns. Then the frequencies built upon each other, creating overtones and harmonic interference that made the fortress metal components resonate with increasingly violent oscillations, sir. Lieutenant Neri called out her species' emotional coloring, now displaying patterns that suggested she was experiencing transcendent awe mixed with existential terror. The fortress is falling apart, but it is doing so in perfect mathematical harmony, Commander. Hen-Wu watched on the tactical display as the Void Swarm's most secure position literally vibrated itself apart, its hull separating along stress lines that formed geometric patterns that were simultaneously destructive and oddly artistical. Unit's mission accomplished, Minho announced as the last pieces of the fortress drifted apart in space, still glowing from the resonance frequencies. The Kepler stronghold has been successfully converted from a military installation into abstract. Art engineer So Young's voice came through the communication system, filled with the satisfaction of someone who had just proven that the universe was much more interesting than most people believed. Commander, I am detecting some unusual readings. From the debris field, I think our resonance cascade might have accidentally created a new type of space-time phenomenon. Yun-Wu closed his eyes and tried to remember what his career had been like before humans had joined the Galactic Navy. It seemed like a simpler time when military victories did not require explanations involving music theory and accidental physics discoveries. What kind of phenomenon, he asked, though he suspected the answer would give him a headache. Well, maybe don't worry about the details, but I think we accidentally created a localized area where the laws of physics are more flexible. It might be useful for future operations. The debris field that had once been the Kepler stronghold was now glowing with strange energies that made their instruments display readings that should not have been possible. Pieces of the fortress continued to vibrate in perfect mathematical harmony, creating a cosmic wind chime that played melodies in dimensions that most species could not perceive. Sir Pilot Jae-sung reported from his asteroid. The resonance cascade is spreading. The entire asteroid belt is beginning to vibrate in harmony with our frequency patterns. Is that dangerous? Hyun-Woo Young checked her calculations. Not dangerous exactly, but we might have accidentally turned this entire solar system into a musical instrument. The asteroids are now resonating at frequencies that could be used for long-range communication or possibly as a defensive grid. You turned a solar system into a musical instrument, Hyun-Woo said faintly. It was an accident, So Young protested, but a happy accident. The harmonic resonance we created is actually improving the local space-time stability. Plus, I think we might have solved the dark matter problem for this region. The dark matter problem? Oh yes, So Young said cheerfully. Dark matter is just matter that is vibrating at frequencies we cannot normally detect. But our resonance cascade has synchronized it with normal matter frequencies, so now we can see it and use it. The entire solar system now has about 30% more usable matter than before. Commander Hyun-Woo realized that the humans had not just defeated an unbeatable fortress, they had accidentally improved an entire solar system. While doing it, they had turned military engineering into cosmic architecture and somehow made the universe work better in the processor. Communications Officer Sung-min announced, "We are receiving priority communications from Galactic Command. They want immediate confirmation of mission status and detailed explanations of the anomalous readings they are detecting from this sector. Tell them the mission was successful," Hyun-Woo said slowly, "and that we need to schedule a very long meeting to discuss the side effects." What kind of side effects? Minho asked innocently. The kind where we accidentally made scientific discoveries that will revolutionize our understanding of physics while defeating the enemy with weaponized music theory, Hyun-Woo replied. Minho's smile got bigger. "Commander, we just received new intelligence. The Void Swarm is mobilizing their Grand Armada in response to our recent victories. They are gathering every ship they have for one final assault." How many ships are we talking about? Hyun-Woo asked, dreading the answer. About 10,000 ships, including their central command vessel, which is the size of a small moon. Yun-Woo felt his 3 hearts Skip several beats. 10,000 ships was more than the entire Galactic Navy had ever assembled in one place. It was enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. What did you recommend, Captain Hiaskedman Hosea? Expression shifted to that dangerous look of human inspiration that Hyun-woo had learned to both fear and trust. Well, maybe don't try conventional tactics against an enemy force that large, but engineer So Young has been working on something she calls the impossibility engine. The impossibility engine is a device that makes impossible things possible, So Young explained cheerfully. By manipulating the harmonic resonance of space-time itself, we can create localized areas where normal physical laws are more like suggestions. Plus, I think I figured out how to weaponize the universe's sense of humor. Hyun-woo stared at the humans on his bridge, all of whom were excitedly discussing their plans to defeat 10,000 enemy ships using weaponized cosmic comedy. He realized that somewhere along the way he had stopped being surprised by human plans and started looking forward to seeing how they would redefine the impossible this time. All right, he said finally. What do you need to build this impossibility engine? Just some basic materials and permission to completely ignore the laws of physics, So Young replied. Permission granted, Hyun-woo said. The Galactic Navy High Command meeting room had been designed to project authority and inspire confidence in military leadership. The polished table, holographic displays, and ceremonial decorations spoke of thousands of years of naval tradition and strategic expertise. Today, however, the assembled admirals looked like they were questioning the fundamental nature of reality itself. Let me understand this report correctly, Admiral Kwan-ho said slowly, his species' natural dignity somewhat undermined by the expression of someone trying to solve a puzzle made of pure chaos. A single modified cruiser with a crew of humans defeated a void swarm stronghold by turning it into a musical instrument. Captain Min-ho stood at attention, though his human smile suggested he was enjoying the confusion he was causing among the galaxy's most senior military officers. That is correct, sir. We used harmonic resonance to create structural failure in the fortress biomechanical components by playing music at it, Admiral Chun-woo stated flatly. Strategically optimized acoustic warfare, sir. Min-ho corrected politely. Engineer So Young's calculations were quite precise. We were not just playing music. We were conducting a symphony of targeted destruction. Admiral Sun-hee, a veteran of 40 years of conventional warfare, leaned forward with the expression of someone trying to grasp concepts that existed outside normal military doctrine. Captain, your report mentions that during the assault you accidentally created a localized space-time anomaly that makes physics more flexible. What exactly does that mean? We are still studying the phenomenon, sir, Min-ho admitted, but preliminary analysis suggests that the resonance cascade interacted with quantum field fluctuations in ways that allow for enhanced manipulation of physical constants within a limited area. You broke the laws of physics, Admiral, Kwan-ho said with the tone of someone stating the obvious, more like we found a loophole in the universe's operating manual. Min-ho replied cheerfully. Engineer So Young says it is similar to finding a cheat code in a computer game, except the computer game is reality itself. The assembled admirals exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of unspoken communication. They had spent their careers mastering military strategy based on predictable physical laws, established tactical doctrines, and conventional approaches to warfare. The humans had been part of the Galactic Navy for less than a month, and they were already rewriting fundamental assumptions about what was possible. Captain, Admiral Sun-hee said carefully, your success against the Kepler stronghold is undeniable. However, your methods raise certain concerns about the future of naval doctrine. Commander Hyun-woo, who had been silent during most of the briefing, stepped forward. If I may, admirals, I have been observing human tactical thinking for several weeks now. They do not operate according to conventional military logic, but their results are consistently exceptional. Exceptional does not begin to describe it, Admiral Chin-woo muttered, reviewing the battle reports. According to these files, the humans have improved ship efficiency by 30%, developed 3 new types of faster than light communication, accidentally discovered a method for predicting enemy behavior using music theory, and somehow made our standard military rations taste better. It is all about understanding that the universe is more connected than most people Realize Minho explained Engineer So Young calls it holistic problem solving. When you stop thinking of separate systems and start seeing everything as part of one big interconnected, puzzle solutions become more obvious. Admiral Kwan Ho brought up a holographic display showing the current war status. Captain the Void. Swarm has been adapting to conventional tactics for decades. Our traditional approaches are becoming less effective. However, your unconventional methods seem to consistently surprise them. That is because we are not following any tactical doctrine they can analyze and counter, Minho said. We are essentially improvising our way through military engagements using principles they cannot predict because they are not actually military principles. What are they if not military principles? Admiral Sun Hee Minho considered the question seriously. Art, music, creative problem-solving, mathematical beauty, and what humans call educated intuition we are treating warfare like a creative expression rather than a rigid system. The admirals were quiet for several moments, processing the implications of what they were hearing. The most successful tactical innovations in recent memory were coming from a species that approached military science like it was a form of artistic expression. There is another issue we need to discuss, Admiral Chunwoo said finally. Intelligence reports indicate that other species within the Galactic Alliance are beginning to request human advisors for their own military operations. The Altarians want to know if humans can teach them creative warfare. The Centauri are asking about tactical improvisation. Even our most traditional allies are starting to question conventional military doctrine. It is spreading, Admiral Kwan Ho observed with a mixture of fascination and concern. Human approaches to problem-solving are influencing military thinking across the galaxy. Commander Hyun Woo nodded. Sir, I have witnessed this firsthand. My crew has begun adopting human methods and our operational effectiveness has improved dramatically, but it requires a fundamental shift in how we think about military challenges. The question, Admiral Sun Hee said slowly, is whether we try to systematize and regulate human tactical innovations or whether we accept that effective military strategy might sometimes look more like chaos than order. Hosea expression shifted to something that the admirals were learning to recognize as dangerous human inspiration. Admirals, maybe don't try to systematize what we do. The moment you turn creativity into a rigid system, it stops being creative. But if you are willing to let us continue experimenting, I think we can end this war in ways that nobody expects. What do you have in mind, Captain? Admiral Kwan Ho asked, though his tone suggested he was already preparing himself for an answer that would challenge his understanding of military reality. Minho activated his personal display unit and began sketching tactical diagrams that looked more like abstract art than battle plans. Well, Engineer So Young has been analyzing the Void Swarm's central command structure, and she thinks she has found a way to defeat their entire fleet using a single ship. Some creative engineering and what she calls the universe's sense of humor. The admirals stared at the incomprehensible diagrams, trying to process tactical concepts that seem to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. Maybe don't ask for details until we are sure it will work, Minho added helpfully. But if our calculations are correct, we might be able to end this war by making the enemy laugh themselves to death. Admiral Kwan Ho rubbed his temples with three of his hands. Captain, are you seriously proposing that we end a galactic war using comedy? Not just comedy, Sir. Minho replied with the enthusiasm of someone explaining their favorite hobby. Weaponized comedy combined with harmonic resonance, quantum probability manipulation, and what Engineer So Young calls aggressive positivity. What exactly is aggressive positivity? Admiral Sun Hee asked weakly. It is the military application of optimism, sir. Minho explained cheerfully. When you project enough positive energy at the universe starts cooperating with you. Plus, we think we can use it to override the Void Swarm's hive mind programming. Commander Hyunwoo stepped forward again. Admirals, I know how this sounds, but I have seen humans turn impossible situations into easy victories using methods that should not work. The Void Swarm has never encountered anything like human tactical thinking. The admirals looked at each other in a long moment of silent communication. They were being asked to bet the fate of the galaxy on humanity's ability to weaponize comedy and positive thinking. Admiral Kwan Ho sighed deeply. Captain Minho, you are authorized to proceed with your unconventional approach. to ending this war, but I want hourly reports, and if this plan involves turning the entire galaxy into a musical instrument, I need advance warning. Understood, Sir Minho replied happily. We will try to keep the cosmic side effects to a minimum. Try is not a word that inspires confidence. Admiral Chung Wu muttered, maybe don't worry about confidence. Sir Minho said with that dangerous human smile, trust the process. The universe has a sense of humor, and we are about to find out if it thinks war is funny. The Void Swarm Grand Armada had been gathering at the edge of the galaxy for 3 months, a collection of biomechanical nightmares that represented the largest military force ever assembled. By the hive mind species intelligence reports counted, over 10,000 ships ranging from nimble fighters to massive world killers, all coordinated by a central command vessel the size of a small moon. Against this overwhelming force, the Galactic Navy was sending a single modified cruiser crewed by humans and whatever cosmic sense of humor they had managed to weaponize. Want to make it clear for the record, Commander. Han Wu announced to his bridge crew that I am filing an official objection to this mission plan on the grounds that it appears to violate several fundamental principles of reality. Noted. And logged. Sir. Communications Officer Sung Min replied with the calm of someone who had given up trying to apply logic to human military operations. Should I also note that you are proceeding with the mission anyway? Yes, because apparently I have developed a pathological trust in humanity's ability to turn impossible situations into tactical advantages. Han Wu admitted. Captain Minho entered the bridge carrying what appeared to be a musical instrument crossed with a quantum physics experiment and a coffee machine. Final preparations are complete. Commander Engineer So Young has finished calibrating the impossibility engine. Please do not tell me that is the official name. Hyun Woo said weakly. Actually, the official name is Harmonic Reality Adjustment Device Engineer. So Young called out from her position at the engineering station, which now looked like a combination of a starship, control panel, and a concert mixing board. But Impossibility Engine has a better ring to it. Lieutenant Nari, whose species' emotional coloring had evolved entirely new patterns during her service with humans, approached with the final mission briefings. Sir, the Grand Armada is maintaining standard defensive formations. They appear to be expecting a conventional assault. They are about to be severely disappointed. Pilot Jae-sung announced cheerfully as he completed his pre-flight checks. His fighter had been modified so extensively that it now resembled a small ship crossed with a musical instrument and what appeared to be a mobile physics laboratory. The tactical display showed the approaching armada, a vast cloud of enemy vessels that represented the accumulated military might of the Void Swarm civilization. Standard military doctrine would require the combined fleets of at least 12 species and acceptable casualties in the billions. The humans had different ideas about acceptable casualties. All stations report ready. Tactical Officer Jin Woo announced his instruments, now displaying readouts that included things like cosmic irony levels and probability of universal amusement. The impossibility engine is online and reality appears to be flexible. Phase 1 initiation. Minho commanded, and Engineer So Young activated the first component of their plan. The modification to their ship's communication array began broadcasting what appeared to be a standard diplomatic message toward the Void Swarm fleet. However, the message was transmitted using frequencies that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, creating a form of communication that was technically impossible but worked perfectly anyway. What exactly are we saying to them? Commander Hyun Woo asked as he watched the message propagate through space in ways that made his instruments question their basic understanding of physics. We are telling them a joke, Minho explained with the enthusiasm of someone sharing a particularly clever punchline. Specifically, we are telling them the funniest joke in the universe as calculated by Engineer So Young using quantum humor algorithms and what she calls comedic mathematics. There is no such thing as comedic mathematics, Hyun Woo protested. There is now. So Young replied cheerfully. I invented it last week while trying to figure out why humans find certain things funny. Turns out humor follows mathematical patterns that can be optimized and weaponized. The Void Swarm fleet began to respond to the transmitted message, their biomechanical ships rippling with confusion as their hive mind attempted to process information that was simultaneously hilarious and incomprehensible. Across 10,000 vessels, the collective consciousness of the swarm encountered something it had never experienced before: the desire to laugh phase. Tu Minho announced in pilot. Yujin activated the mathematical component of their assault. The space around the enemy fleet filled with geometric patterns that were mathematically beautiful, logically impossible, and cosmically ridiculous, all at the same time. Fibonacci spirals, prime number sequences, and what So Young had labeled the universe's favorite equations created visual patterns that appealed to some fundamental aesthetic sense that existed beyond individual species. Sir, Communications Officer Seungmin reported with wonder. I am detecting laughter from the enemy fleet. Laughter. Han Wu stared at his instruments, trying to process readings that indicated the void swarms. Central Command Ship was producing sounds that could only be described as cosmic chuckling, not just laughter. Pilot Tae Hyan called out from his station. I am reading harmonious giggling from 17 destroyer squadrons and what appears to be bemused snickering from their fighter wings. The void swarm had conquered galaxies for thousands of years through ruthless efficiency and perfect coordination. Their hive-mind consciousness had never experienced concepts like humor, appreciation of beauty, or the simple joy of a well-told joke, but the humans had found a way to introduce these alien concepts directly into their collective awareness phase. 3 Minho commanded, and the impossibility engine reached full power. Engineer So Young's modifications to reality itself began to take effect. The space around both fleets started to behave according to rules that prioritized cosmic comedy over conventional physics. Weapons that were fired with malicious intent mysteriously malfunctioned, while actions taken with genuine good humor worked better than they should have. The enemy hive ships, massive weapon systems, attempted to fire at the human cruiser, but instead of deadly energy beams, they produced fireworks that spelled out jokes. In 17 different languages, the destroyer squadrons tried to coordinate attack formations, but found themselves unconsciously arranging into patterns that resembled smiley faces and mathematical puns. Commander, the enemy command ship is trying to communicate. Lieutenant Neri announced, her voice filled with amazement. They are broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. What are they saying? Hyan Wu asked. They are asking us to tell them another joke. The human crew looked at each other with expressions of delighted surprise. Their plan to weaponize the universe's sense of humor was working better than they had dared to hope. The Void Swarm's hive mind had been so focused on conquest and efficiency that it had never developed any resistance to pure, unbridled joy. Captain Minho, we are receiving surrender signals from the entire Grand Armada. Communications Officer Seungmin reported, his voice filled with professional bewilderment. 10,000 ships are requesting permission to join the Galactic Navy so they can learn more about human humor. Minho turned to Commander Hyan Wu with a smile that contained equal parts triumph and cosmic mischief. Commander, I think we just ended the war by teaching the enemy how to laugh. Engineer So Young looked up from her reality adjustment controls with the satisfied expression of someone who had just proven that the universe had a sense of humor and it preferred comedy to tragedy. Commander, the impossibility engine has created some interesting side effects. The entire sector now has improved luck probability, enhanced creativity levels, and what appears to be a permanent upgrade to the local laws of physics. What kind of upgrade? Hyan Wu asked, though he was beginning to suspect that he did not want to know. Well, the speed of light is now faster. Cosmic background radiation plays music, and I think we accidentally made it impossible for anyone in this region of space to have a genuinely bad day, So Young explained cheerfully. Plus, the dark matter is now visible, and it turns out it was just shy. Commander Han Wu looked around his bridge at the humans, who had somehow ended a galactic war by weaponizing laughter and accidentally improved an entire sector of space. In the process, he realized that the Galactic Navy would need to completely rewrite their training manuals to include courses on creative problem-solving, cosmic comedy, and the practical applications of aggressive optimism. Sir, Pilot Jae-sung called out, the former Void Swarm ships are requesting permission to form a comedy squadron. They want to learn how to make other enemy fleets laugh instead of destroying them. Permission granted, Hyan Wu replied, because apparently turning military conflicts into comedy shows was now standard naval procedure. The war was over not because one side had defeated the other, but because the humans had taught Everyone involved that the universe was much more fun when people were laughing together instead of fighting. The Void Swarm had discovered that existence was much more enjoyable when you could appreciate the cosmic joke of it all, and somewhere in the background of space itself, the universe was laughing, too pleased that someone had finally figured out that reality worked better when it was approached with humor, creativity, and the unshakable belief that impossible things were just problems that had not been solved yet. Mission accomplished, Captain Minho announced as former enemy ships began broadcasting jokes and mathematical puns across the galaxy. We have successfully weaponized the universe's sense of humor and accidentally made everyone happier. Best